Welcome back to another episode, and today we are going to be looking at the 6 times Nintendo messed up on the Switch. These are the 6 games that I think Nintendo really messed up with. Look, the Switch has been an amazing system. It has so many classic, iconic games, but there have been some that have completely missed the mark, and those are the ones we're looking at today. Remember, this is my list, and it's Nintendo only titles, so it has to be published by Nintendo. I know there's a load of third-party nonsense out there that's even worse than this, but these are strictly Nintendo games, and it is my list, so you may enjoy some of these more, and just because they're on this list doesn't mean there's not some redeeming qualities for each of these games, and I'm going to let you know what those good qualities are as well as the bad. So let's get started. I'm going to go from best right down to worst, and I'm starting off with this game that I recently made a short about. It is Endless Ocean Luminous. This, unfortunately, has been a massive letdown for me. I'm a fan of the series. The games on Wii really spoke to me. Their unique, relaxing style of gameplay, and it was just really fun to relax, chill out, and have this kind of gameplay experience. This version on Switch has been let down with a lack of content. It feels really underbaked, and really, it just feels like an old game. It's so unfortunate. I was a big fan of this series, and I wanted it to come back. When I seen it on the Direct, I thought, great, this is going to be an awesome send-off for the Switch, one of the best underlooked series that Nintendo has, and unfortunately, they've let it go. They've really messed this one up. Opinions are split on this, and I will admit, it's still a good game to put on and chill out to, but there's really not that much to it. The single player campaign isn't great. Even in multiplayer, it's not worth the price of admission. Endless Ocean, unfortunately, has been a letdown for me. Next up, we have Mario Golf Super Rush. And I wanted to love this game. Mario Golf games are really fun. I love the one on the 3DS. They can be really amazing single player games, but obviously, as with all Mario sports games, they can really find their niche as a multiplayer title and become one of your favourites that you're always putting on when friends are around. But this game, much like a lot of Mario sports games on the Switch, or lately in general, has really been let down by Nintendo's strategy. It feels like this game came out kind of half-baked. It's a little bit higher on the list because I did love speedrun mode where you have to rush between holes. It had a real element of crazy golf to it. It was so much fun to play that. But the main campaign mode of this really let the title down, and that's such a shame. I love having season modes or campaigns in sports games and in Mario sports titles, but this one let it down. I think this is a game that Nintendo should have prioritized for DLC down the line in a meaningful way. But unfortunately, the DLC we keep getting for these sports games and Nintendo games in general hasn't really been top tier. Hopefully the Mario sports titles start to come into their own and improve a bit in the future. But as for now, this was a big letdown. Next up, we have a Nintendo Switch launch title, and it's 1-2 Switch. This one came from Nintendo, and it was really at a time that I didn't think it suited the direction the company wanted to go. This was a time for change. We had a brand new hybrid system with one of the greatest games you're ever going to play in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And unfortunately, 1-2 Switch just felt like something from a past life that they tacked on to this one. It feels very much like a Wii or Wii U title, very gimmicky, very family and party orientated, and while that's great for its own setting and its own time, the time for this was not right at the launch of the Switch. I feel like combining this game with its sequel with a more robust game down the line might have been better, but overall, I want to see these games from Nintendo left in the past. Too much gimmick, not enough gameplay. And that's why the next game on my list, it's Everybody 1-2 Switch. I had to have these ones beside each other. They're both pretty bad games, but everybody want to switch really takes the biscuit. The idea behind this one sounds great in concept. You think 200 players can play this game, but then you think about the realistic scenario, maybe yourself and a couple of friends, or if you want to experience this game on your own and you're a single player gamer, well, it's a no from Nintendo. This is not designed for single players at all. And what's there as a multiplayer feels really half-baked. It feels like it was just thrown out to have a release for a certain time point in the Switch's life and really fill a gap, instead of having something quality. And that's rarely something you can say for Nintendo. I think they dropped the ball on this one. Like I said, I would love to see 1-2-Switch and everybody 1-2-Switch having been combined together in a massive game that had a lot more content and was maybe supported with DLC for free down the line with new games and experiences. Then it may have been worth it. But trying to double dip on this to get 2 different 1-2-Switch experiences for such shallow gameplay and shallow experiences that really feel dated, unfortunately, this wasn't a hit for me. And now we get down to the final 2. And this one is really difficult for me. It is Mario Tennis Aces. And I hate having to put this at number 2 in my most disappointing Switch list, a time that Nintendo has messed up and not done what they should have. But unfortunately, as with all of these Mario sports titles, Nintendo completely destroyed this one. Mario Tennis is one of the best experiences you can have. It's so much fun, but not in this guise. Unfortunately, as I've said with a lot of these, Nintendo have just released this as a half-baked release. It feels like it wasn't ready to come out, it didn't have enough courses, it didn't have enough characters. Much like with Mario Golf, I personally didn't find the story mode or the single player element of this anywhere near robust enough. They need to go back to the drawing board with all of these sports games with Camelot and get this sorted. Mario Tennis Aces should be one that everyone should want to have on their console. It's fun for a bit of multiplayer and it could really eat up your time with a great single player experience. But unfortunately, yet again, Nintendo didn't capitalize on what they have. They released something half-baked, something that didn't just feel quite right in the gameplay and was lacking in content. Don't get me wrong though, I have complaints about all of these games, but they each have little bits and elements that are quite good, but they've all been let down in one way or another. And it's a shame because this console generation with the Switch is one of Nintendo's greatest of all time. In terms of their first party offerings and the games that they've had available, we have had hit after hit after hit. And I suppose you really can't complain that there are a few misses. But that brings me on to my number 1 most disappointing game from Nintendo on the Switch. The number 1 time that Nintendo messed up real bad on this console. And it pains me to say this so much. This sucks. It's Mario Strikers. Why? Why, Nintendo? Why? Why have you done this to one of the games that should have, could have been a standout on the console? This was it. We haven't had a Mario Strikers game that's really been there, worthwhile, I personally think, since the GameCube, and I've waited for so long. We needed this game to be good. It's got handheld gameplay, you can dock it for playing multiplayer when people are around. This should have been the ultimate time killer. This should have been one that you could sink hours and hours into. And instead, what we got with all the other sports games really carried over into this one, and we got a lackluster, half-empty game that feels like it wasn't finished, and then had to be padded and stuck together with DLC, and even that DLC, it wasn't worth the time that we waited for it. These Mario sports games, they need fixing. They need fixing in a real bad way. And that's another video we can maybe look at down the line. But in terms of Mario Strikers, I really didn't think this was anything to write home about. The gameplay itself didn't really feel 100% great. It didn't feel as good as the old games, but the lack of content, the lack of a proper single player campaign that you can really get your teeth into, and then the lack of different characters and stages for whenever you're wanting to battle it out in multiplayer, they messed it up. They messed it up. What can I say? Nintendo, you completely screwed the pooch on this one. And there we have it. Those are the 6 games that I feel are times that Nintendo really let themselves down on the Nintendo Switch. Like I said, I have to be positive about this console generation overall though. Switch has been fantastic. It's been absolutely amazing. Some of my favourite games of all time now have a home on this little handheld system, and it is great. But these 6, unfortunately, I don't think are worth it. And it's a shame because some of them have the innards of a game that could be great, but they just didn't do right by them. And that's unfortunate. Let me know in the comments below if you were disappointed by any of these games, or definitely let me know if you actually love some of these games. It would be really interesting to hear different opinions and different views on this, and you can let me know what some of your most disappointing experiences are on the Switch, whether they're from Nintendo or not. Sound off in the comments and we'll get a bit of a discussion going and see those games that we should all be avoiding. As always, it's been my pleasure to have a chat with you today, and I will see you all in the next one.